Friday, August 18th, 2023, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today, we're going to look at the world's monetary system, how it has evolved since World War I, and we're going to touch upon the BRICS summit that starts on Tuesday, August 22nd. There's been a lot of speculation, of course, that they're going to announce some kind of new reserve currency system, payment system for the rest of the world. And we're going to look at whether this BRICS summit is the most important monetary event of the 21st century. And I will give you my opinion on such matters. And we're also going to look at the markets and some of the economic data this morning. They're very interesting data. And the markets, especially the bond markets, are behaving, quite interestingly, I would say. Before I start, though, I like to say that Miles Franklin, one of my affiliates in North America, they have a special on the 1 ounce silver buffalo rounds, and they're only $2.50 over spot. So if you're interested, you can email them at info@milesfranklin.com and mention Monaco 64 or Mario sent you there. Or you can also call them on 1-800-822-8080. You can go to their website as well if you'd like. So, of course, there's been a lot of speculation. There's been a lot of also ignoring of the BRICS summit, downplaying of it, of course, in the West by the mainstream media. We in the alternative space here, economic, sound money space, have been covering it more because a lot of these countries have been buying gold, not just since 2022, but if you look at Russia, for example, they've been buying gold, a lot of gold since 2006 even. China, of course, has probably a lot more gold than the official numbers tell us. Even Brazil started buying gold, a lot of gold in 2021. And India, of course, has been buying a lot of gold. But I like to go over the background, why these countries, not just the BRICS, but countries like Saudi Arabia and other countries in the Middle East and in the global south are looking to get away from dealing in the dollar amongst themselves, and maybe even drawing up some kind of system under which they could trade, under which they'd have to use something honest, of course, something that's not political or national. And the only thing that we've got historically is, of course, gold, also silver to some extent, because gold and silver are just metals. They can't put sanctions on countries. They're not political like fiat currencies or even currencies under a gold-backed or silver-backed system. Politicians can always tinker with it. So ideally, I would say the BRICS summit, we should hear in the world that I think would be best, not a system really, but a standard that they could use to trade amongst themselves while keeping the independence of each sovereign nation under the BRICS grouping, something informal. But I'm not sure that's going to be what's going to happen. I have a feeling that there will be a few nations that are going to dominate this system, and eventually it will come to no good, just like the Bretton Woods system came to no good, just like the Genoa conference system in 1922 after World War I came to no good, because you've got the bankers and the politicians in charge of it. The way I see it is that yeah, you might have a standard amongst countries. They might decide we're going to use zero point 0.9 gold or 0.916 gold, and then their coins are what they want, or sterling silver. And all the governments do is maintain that standard for the coins. But governments are not involved, and you don't have international institutions. So I want to go a little over the history of how really the two world wars we had in the 20th century ushered in a monetary system controlled by the bankers. And I think it's normal because the bankers, and a lot of you know who they are, the big international bankers, and they're of all different colors, different religions, and different nationalities. Just wanted to point that out. But they want control of not just the nation's currency and money, but with World War II, the two world wars, it gave them the excuse to be in control of the global money, so to speak. And I'm going to try to explain that right now. So prior to World War I, there wasn't really any international institutions like the Bank for International Settlements or the IMF and World Bank. Yes, there was a gold standard that we had amongst nations, but all that meant was there's some general rules, like the US used to use 0.9 gold, the weight and the denomination, $20.67 per 1 ounce. And then all different countries had different weights and measures. And yes, a trade was conducted and settled in gold. But governments were not really involved, and there were no international institutions trying to tell countries what to do with their economies. But unfortunately, with World War I, and many people wonder why World War I started. That's a question for another video, but be as it may, at the end of World War I, there was a very good excuse to create international institutions. Yes, they tried the League of Nations. That came about, but the US did not join, so that was a problem. But then they created the Bank for International Settlements in 1930, and it's got a lot to do with World War I, because as the name says, it was a bank for international settlements to settle all the German reparations that were imposed on Germany with the Versailles Treaty after World War I. So that bank was an excuse, really, and it was created by private bankers. And if you don't believe me, watch my videos about it. The statute of the BIS shows that it was national central banks that were privately owned, banks like JP Morgan, First National, Citibank of New York and of Chicago, that were and probably are still the shareholders. So they got their big international bank. But they still didn't have the IMF and the World Bank. So that came about, of course, as a result of World War II, along with the Bretton Woods Agreement. And we've got a monetary system, right? And we had some kind of system as well that came after World War I with the Genoa Conference. I think it was 1922. That failed. And the Bretton Woods system, that failed in 1971. President Nixon said they're going to replace it with a new system, and they never did. So we've had the petrodollar. And now the BRICS, they're challenging this petrodollar system, a system where really the United States and its allies dominate the system. And that's why currencies like the pound, the euro, Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, all the major Western currencies, the Japanese yen, are pretty much controlled and manipulated by the powers that be. I think It was Lindsey Williams who spoke about this when he met Jonathan May. He spoke to Jonathan May, who knew a lot about the international system, that he said that the central bankers through the BIS make sure that the currencies of the West maintain their purchasing power. They're part of a club. So the BRICS countries and the rest of the global South, they've seen through this, and they've seen that the United States and the West, through their exorbitant privilege to just print dollars out of thin air, have been really having the best of them, and that's what they want now. They want something new. But I'm afraid unless it's very informal, and unless these countries under the BRICS umbrella remain sovereign and independent, I think what will happen is that eventually, I don't know, in 50, 75 years time or even less, the whole system will implode. And that's why I always keep telling people that you have to be your own central banker. Of course, there's a lot of speculation on whether they're going to use gold to back their system, or to back some kind of settlement system. And that's something that is very important, of course, because we've had a Ponzi system really since 1971, and John Exter called it "I owe you nothings." Right? It's not the monetary system is not anchored. So even if the BRICS put up a system where governments and nations control it, not the market and sound money, but if they put up a system that is based on gold, it's still better than what we have, I think, and it would change things dramatically for the whole world, because it means that what we've seen in the last 30 years or so, where credit is cheap and abundant, and people can borrow whatever they want, and asset prices go through the roof because interest rates are manipulated through money printing and bond buying, which leads to bubbles in the stock, bond, and real estate. That will be a thing of the past, I think. And I'm not saying that there won't be booms and busts, but it will be a much more sober and sane, I think, monetary world. I mean, if you were to meet your great grandparents and tell them how the system works now, they would be probably shocked to know that exchange rates change every second. Exchange rates were just the exchange rate between different gold standard coins of different standards and different weights amongst nations. That's all it was. And yes, it wasn't supposed to fluctuate because the weight of gold and the weight of silver are the best. They're the best standards of value, and they have been for thousands of years. So let's see what happens on August 22nd, next Tuesday, and whether this summit will be the biggest monetary event of the 21st century. And let's hope they don't devise a system where a few countries dominate, but a set of rules for dealing with each other in a free market, free trade world with sound money. I'm not going to hold my breath for that, but that would be the best thing that could happen. So with that, let's look at what's going on. I said there was some interesting economic data here in the UK. Yes, we've had retail sales. They came out this morning at 7 o'clock. They dropped 3.2% year on year. They're expected to drop 2.1%. And month on month in July, they dropped 1.2%. They're expected to drop 0.5%. So GDP as well is anemic. So the UK economy, for all intents and purposes, is in a recession, and we have stagflation, of course, because CPI is still growing at 6.8, and I'll give the government the benefit of the doubt on that number. I know they've doctored that number last year, so to make it look lower. The RPI, of course, is at 10%. So yeah, the economy is not in good shape. We've had also data from Japan. We've had the CPI in Japan. So CPI came out at 3.3%. It was unchanged from the previous month, but it was expected to drop to 2.5%. And the core CPI, that came out at 3.1, which was in line, but it dropped from 3.3 the previous month. And it's interesting that you've got two articles about this number here. You've got Yahoo Finance. They say Japan CPI inflation picks up in July, more pressure on the BOJ. And then you have Bloomberg. On the other hand, they reported on the basis of the core CPI, and their headline says Japan inflation slows in line with BOJ's cooling price. So you make of that what you want. So there you go. The other thing I've been noticing this morning is that bond yields, treasury yields, have come off quite a bit overnight. And yesterday we tested that 433 level I was talking about. And magically this morning, though, the 10-year yield is down 7 basis points, which is quite significant and quite strange, in my opinion, that it's doing that in the overnight session before the U.S. market opens. So we're back to 424. Which is, below that 433. We have to keep an eye on that. As for the UK bond market, we saw a big move higher yesterday in the 2-year yield. We went up to like 530 was the high. Right now it's down to 525. I guess the data, retail sales data, have put a dampener on yields, but I think we have a stagflation problem. And we're going to keep seeing yields rise in the UK, despite the fact that the economy is in a recession. The 30-year yesterday, we got just up to 5%, and right now we're at 492. So let's quickly look at the markets like we usually do. It's 8:26 a.m. London time. We've got spot gold at $18.92. It's up $3. High's been $18.95. The low's been $18.88. Silver is up 11 cents. It's trading at $22.80. The high's been 90. The low 65. The Dow futures up 26. Nasdaq 100 futures down 13. S&P is up just under 2 points. The pound has been a little weaker this morning because of the retail sales data. It's down 0.2% at 127.23. The low's been 127.07. Euro's unchanged. Dollar's down versus the yen 0.4% at 145.23. And the dollar is unchanged versus the yuan at 7.30. Aussie dollar is up 0.1% at 64.11. The Canadian, the dollar is unchanged versus the Canadian dollar, 135.37. The Kiwi dollar is up 0.2 at 59.35. To the commodities, WTI crude is up 0.4% at 80.27. Brent is up 1/3 at 84.15. And Rudy, what's up, Rudy? I'm almost finished. And platinum is at just below 900. It's up about $2. High grade copper is down 0.2 at 371.53. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good weekend. Take care. Bye.